What is up, guys? It is the Bluebloods here. And man, I appreciate y'all tuning in on this Monday night. You guys already know what it is here on the Bluebloods, man. We had an awesome quarterfinals weekend of FCS football, and we're here to recap it all. Listen, I feel a little bit confident going in to this next round of the playoffs, and it's because we went 4-0 for the first time this season in the playoffs. We lost 3 games the first round, 3 games the second round. We go undefeated finally, and so I'm feeling good about where we are on these picks. Am I delayed a little bit? It looks like I'm a little bit delayed here. Comment if I'm a little bit delayed. We'll try to fix that up. But guys, it was an awesome weekend of football. And so listen, how we're going to do this, we're going to recap the games one by one, and I'm going to get y'all's thoughts on them. So make sure to comment your thoughts on all these games below. I definitely want to hear from my Sam Houston fans because I think that by far was probably the shocker of the weekend in terms of just absolute blowout by the underdogs of Montana State. But we are going to have to start with the Friday night game. Montana traveling to James Madison as James Madison gets the big 28-6 win. And I already know what's coming. Listen, I already know what's coming, Montana fans, and I think you guys have a pretty good argument in terms of what happened. I mean, when you lose your starting quarterback in Humphrey, you lose arguably your best wide receiver, and I believe it was Akeem, both in the first half. It is going to be real tough to pull out a game on the road against this James Madison team. I mean, this James Madison team is an all-around great team. They can run the football. Cole Johnson is efficient at quarterback, and I think you saw that. And once Montana lost those 2 guys on the offensive side of the ball, there was really no offensive rhythm in the second half. I mean, really and truly at all. You guys remember this was a 7-3 game all the way up until late in the second quarter, and it really didn't start getting out of hand until the second half. And Montana's run defense, to me, was probably the most surprising thing that gave out. And you look at Palmer, especially for James Madison, 167 yards rushing, a touchdown this weekend. Their ability to bust explosive runs and for their offensive line to be so consistent, I think that was really the biggest thing for me for James Madison this weekend was their ability to control the line of scrimmage like they did. And they put up almost 500 yards of total offense, almost 300 passing. And Cole Johnson, again, man, such an efficient night, 17 for 24. And he averaged over 12 yards an attempt through the air. So I give Cole Johnson a lot of credit as well. But this rushing attack against a very, very stout Montana defense just kept pounding and pounding and pounding. And they eventually wore them down late into the second half. And so I thought that James Madison had an absolutely impressive performance. I think they're going to be so tough to beat moving forward, even when you look at a team like a North Dakota State. But on the Montana side, you have to wonder what was going to happen if you could stay fully healthy. And I think that's a valid question, especially anytime you lose your starting quarterback. I think that's when you look and say, man, what if? Because once Humphreys went down, they had Patterson and Brown in. Patterson threw 2 interceptions, and the backup quarterbacks that they had in combined to average about 2.4 yards an attempt. They just could not push the ball down the field, turnover issues, and I think that put too much pressure on Harris and Bergen at the running back spot. And for me, Montana's defense just was on the field too much. And when you're against a physical James Madison team, that is a recipe for disaster. And their ability to create explosive plays was a problem. Palmer in the run game averaging over 8 yards per carry. I mentioned Johnson being able to push the ball down the field. And I also want to give a shout out to Thornton at the wide receiver spot for James Madison. Had a huge day, 6 catches, 82 yards, and a touchdown. And I just thought James Madison this weekend was one. I would say one. I'm not going to say they were the most impressive just because, I mean, there's a team we're going to talk about, and I think you guys know who it is. But for me, I thought James Madison had a huge win, 28-6. It was consistent. It was dominant. And for me, if you're a Montana fan, you have to look to next season and say, what is the potential if we don't have the injuries we had, if we don't have the inconsistencies down the stretch that we had in this one. But I thought overall it was a solid game for James Madison. And listen, this sets up such a good game, and we're going to talk about the end of the show. Let's just wait till the end of the show. The quarterfinals were great. The semifinals have set up for such an so many amazing matchups moving forward. Now, the next game, East Tennessee State at the Fargo Dome, North Dakota State, 27-3 win for the Bison. And I know my guy Dave, who's always in the comments, he was very happy with the win. And okay, so we'll start with the positives because I do have some questions for some people in the chat who are tuned in, and I think you guys know what I'm going to talk about. But one, this win really stems from the Bison's defense. I don't think the offense had a necessarily great game for North Dakota State. I really don't think they showed anything special. I don't think they showed anything that makes me feel like this offense could be elite, really. The number one thing I saw was the defense playing fast, opportunistic, forcing turnovers. They held Riddell, the quarterback for East Tennessee, to only 92 yards passing, forced a big interception, and then they held Quay Holmes. And I said, man, someone asked me what I thought would have to happen if ETSU was going to pull this upset. I said Quay Holmes has to have his best game of the year, only 35 yards rushing, and I didn't really do anything through the air either, only 32 yards receiving on 5 completions. And it really and truly came down to North Dakota State's defense just being that good. ETSU could not move the football. And what did the Bison do? Everyone knows. Say it together now. They're going to run the football ad nauseum. And even if it's not for a high percentage or a high yards per average, they are just going to pound the football up the middle. And it was 49 carries for 278 yards, 4 rushing touchdowns, led by Williams, of course, at the running back spot, 91 yards and 2 touchdowns. And LePeak, 69 yards rushing and a touchdown. And they had multiple guys with over 6 carries. Quincy Patterson, Johnson at the running back spot. All these guys had major carries, but it was just North Dakota State. They're going to play physical defense. They're going to run the football, and they're going to force you to stop them. They're going to say, can you line up your defense and beat us man versus man in the front 7? And all year this year, the answer has been no for the most part. And East Tennessee's defensive front didn't have the depth down the stretch to really slow down what the Bison wanted to do. Now, the one question I do have coming out of this weekend is if James Madison or whoever they face in the championship game, if they can load the box and slow down the rushing attack, and I want you guys to comment your opinion. Can Miller throw the football? If they force Miller to have 25, 30 attempts and be the focal point of the offense through the air, do you guys think that that's a sustainable way for North Dakota State to win a game? I really do have a concern that if you can load the box and somehow stop this powerful rushing attack, do you guys trust North Dakota State to sit back and throw the football? That's really a question. I mean, I don't know the answer to it right now, but do you guys trust North Dakota State and Cam Miller to put the ball in his hands and say go win a game? Silent said North Dakota State's O-line was too big. I agree. Their offensive line it can move people. They can move some grown men. Yeah, Leon said no. He doesn't believe that Miller in this passing attack can win them a game. And so I don't think they've seen a defensive line in the playoffs or a linebacking core that can really match them up front. I think next week is going to be a huge test for this North Dakota State offense because I think James Madison has the guys on that D line to really challenge what North Dakota State wants to do. James Madison has Mike Green and multiple other people that have the size, the physicality, and the experience to go heads up with them. That's the one question I have coming out of this weekend for North Dakota State is, are they one-dimensional? And if you can get them out of their comfort zone, which is running the football, their defense playing with no pressure and keeping the pressure off of their offense, is that sustainable in the future rounds? I don't know. Let's see. Now Watson is out for the rest of the season. North Dakota State's passing success is based off the effectiveness of their run game. See, that's Leon. That's where I was about to take it next. Because right now Miller can use that play action. He can use the loaded box to get some great matchups on the outside. But if you take away the run game, and they can drop some guys into coverage, and you can't work off the play action. You can't work off of, what you're doing on the ground. Can Cam Miller just take the snap and shotgun and say, "I'm going to go make a play"? That's what elite quarterbacks do. You can trust an Eric Berry to do that. You can trust a Cole Kelly, a Cameron Ward. You can trust those types of quarterbacks to win a game with their arm. Or you could even trust a Cole Johnson. Can you trust Cam Miller? And that's the one question I would say I have about North Dakota State at this point in the playoffs. And I think we're gonna find that exact answer this upcoming Friday night when that Fargo Dome is rocking with James Madison and North Dakota State coming in there. Now, the last game before we get to the game of the week that everyone I know wants to talk about, because there was a lot of takes on this last game, but let me hang on. Let's see. Leon said, I agree. Sam Houston did it to him in the spring. North Dakota State special teams kept them in the game. Yeah, that's very, very true, man. That is the key. If you're going to beat North Dakota State, make them one-dimensional. If you let them run the football, you're just not going to win the football game. But we had South Dakota State beating Villanova 35-21. And listen, I don't know. I don't know if there's a team in the playoffs that has made better second half adjustments than what South Dakota State has made. Really and true. I mean, outside of the one loss where they jumped on UC Davis, but 21-0 in the second half, they outscored Villanova. 21-0. They just turned it on in that second half. And I guess they saw something in the first half that Villanova was doing. And that defense is experienced enough and talented enough to make the proper adjustments. And that's where I was kind of waiting to see, especially in the first half. I was watching this game. I was getting real nervous because, as you guys know, I picked South Dakota State. I was real nervous because just something didn't seem to be there. They were missing that edge on the defensive side of the football. Their offense wasn't rolling the way that I was expecting it to. Within the second half, all worries were laid to rest there as they just kind of pulled away in the second half. And I thought, and I know that FCS fans are probably going to know where I'm coming from, but it just shows that the different type of grind that the MVFC has, I think, compared to even the CAA in which Villanova comes from. These teams in the MVFC, their goal is just to wear you down and grind it out. And you see in the second half, a lot of these teams aren't able to withstand that pressure. And I thought that's something we saw with Villanova this week, in my opinion. And I thought that, Davis – stud, but for Strong not to be a factor, kind of looked like he was banged up. Johnson only 64 yards. Davis took over 174 and 3 touchdowns. But then you saw Chris Oladuncan have to pretty much step up in this game. 152, 2 touchdowns through the air, was 11 for 19. I thought this weekend we saw why this was such an impactful transfer for South Dakota State, to get Chris Oladuncan, an experienced quarterback who can lead them on another playoff run. And he said on this show he went to South Dakota State strictly to win a national title, and I thought he delivered when they needed him to this weekend. Silas Pringle was cooking South Dakota State secondary in the first half. He was, man. Listen, he was, and I will give Pringle all the props in the world. 5 receptions, 119, and a touchdown for Villanova. He was the key in the first half, but they really seemed to key on him in the second half and try to take him out of the game, and that's what ultimately helped them win this one. Leon said MVC plays traditional balanced football. They do in a lot of conferences, especially when you look at some of the other conferences like the Southland, and conferences like that. That's why every year, man, those teams seem to kind of run into a buzzsaw due to the fact that they have that, spread air raid style attack, and it just doesn't work against these MVC teams, these Big Sky teams, and things like that. And you have the Big Sky teams who, like Eastern Washington, who's a spread, but the Montanas, the Montana States, they can play that physical, balanced football as well. And I think that's what you're going to see as we get down into the stretch run. James Madison plays that style of football as well. But listen, South Dakota State, they only had, this was the weirdest stat, and I didn't notice it while I was watching the game, but when I was doing my research for the episode, I came across it. They only had 3 different guys catch a football. They had Janke, Hines, and Kraft. Those were the only three players to catch a pass this weekend for South Dakota State. Zero spreading the ball around. Um, Zero spreading the ball around for South Dakota State. And I do think that's going to have to change as they move into the playoffs because I do think Montana State and ultimately North Dakota State and James Madison have too good of defenses and too good their secondaries are way too good for you to have just three players be targeted all game. They're going to have to spread the ball around. But the MVP, like I said, man, Davis, I thought the rushing attack for Villanova looked like things were rolling, especially in the first half. 107 yards, only 26 carries and a touchdown, but they really just couldn't seem to get it going in the second half. And so, like we just addressed in the comments, Pringle not being as big of a factor in the second half and the rushing game kind of tailoring off and South Dakota State, stepping up in terms of their defense in the second half was the ultimate deciding factor. I thought this game was probably a little bit closer than the 14-point difference would suggest, but I think Davis was the MVP. I think Villanova played a solid game, but they just got worn down in the second half, man. They really did. Silent said Davis is fresh. He just picked up where he left off in the spring playoffs. He did, man. And it's tough, man. When you have it's the same thing with North Dakota State. We saw James Madison have a nice rotation this weekend. When you have 3 or 4 guys that you can rotate in and out and not have a big drop off, that gives you such an advantage late in the season, especially in the playoffs at the FBS level in the bowl games or the playoffs, at the FBS level. You look at the Georgias, the Michigans, they have 3, 4 guys that you can put at running back. And the drop off isn't huge. I mean, James Cook is the 3rd string running back at Georgia. That's a pretty good 3rd string running back. To be honest with you, I mean, I think there's a lot of teams where he would probably be running back 1 to be honest. So I think that's going to be something to look for in the next, I would say the next round, in my opinion. Let's see. I think Malo surprised Sam Houston's defense. I agree, Clayton. I do. We're about to get to that game here in a second. I missed the game, but I did watch North Dakota State versus East Tennessee game. Yeah, man, we just talked about that one. I mean, North Dakota State's defense won that one. I think that was clear as day. And we'll get to this one now. And I need to hear from one of my Montana State people. Listen, I put my faith. Y'all told me, Zach, put your faith in Montana State. And I did, and I appreciate y'all for that. And I also need to hear from my Sam Houston people. What happened this weekend, man? Because I know there were some FCS fans that said, man, this is always what Sam Houston does. Sam Houston can't get it done outside of last year. Man, if you comment or you see me somewhere and you tell me that you thought this game was going to be 42-19, I'm going to call you a liar. I'm going to be completely honest with you. I'm going to think you're a liar. There's no way you saw 42-19 coming Montana State over the defending national champions. I picked Montana State by 3. It was 28-0 in this first half. 28-0 and quote unquote with a backup quarterback. With a backup quarterback, Montana State did this. And one, I want to give a huge shout out to the defense of Montana State. That's where I'm going to start first. Holding Sam Houston to 19 points. They average over 40 points per game. And on top of that, holding them to 6 points in the first half and held them to none till late in the first half. They forced 3 huge interceptions against Eric Smid. They also held Sam Houston to under 80 rushing yards, only 1 rushing touchdown allowed. They did one hell of a job on the defensive side of the ball. Of course, they're led by the guy who I think should win the Buck Buchanan, Troy Anderson. That kid is special, and I think he was by far the leader of this defense. Leon said Montana State's defense caught all the passes Sam Houston's quarterback threw to him. Man, it's almost like he was targeted those sometime, man. That defense is so stout. They are just absolutely – they were so impressive, man. I think you had – Manning had an interception. Webb had an interception. I believe it was Woodward. I can't remember. I know it was a W name. All 3 of those guys had picks. So it was 3 different guys that had the interceptions. And let me just say this. Can we please, I know Montana State fans give him credit. Can we please give Afonso some credit, man? This kid, I really do think Afonso could be really, really special And I do think that as great as Malo played, Fonzie is a guy that really popped off the screen for me as I was watching this game. Uh, 24 carries, 105 rushing yards, and a rushing touchdown. Of course, Malo, 2 rushing touchdowns on 76 yards, and also had 2 passing touchdowns, 6 for 11, 165. It was explosive play after explosive play and stout defense. And I mean, I'm going to be honest with you. This game, it looked like Sam Houston was not expecting to be punched in the mouth. They went into the fight thinking they were like Floyd Mayweather. They weren't going to absorb any damage. I think the first touchdown cut them off guard. They got hit by the second touchdown, and you kind of saw that energy on that sideline really start to shift. And then when it got up to 21-0, they looked shell shocked. They looked like they had zero idea about what was going on in that game. And I think this was the first time you could absolutely say Sam Houston just looked like they didn't belong on the field with another team. I don't think anyone can say differently. Right now, it looked like Montana State was the better team in almost every aspect of that game. And I'm going to be honest, I picked them, but I did not see them winning like this one. Let's see. Silence said Sam Houston came out flat. The defensive scheme was terrible. They made Malo look like Eric Grouch, but Montana State's defense is nasty. Listen, relentless is the best word for Montana State's defense. And I don't know if we have any Montana State fans in here, but that defense flies around. When I'm saying they look fast at almost every position, they are fast. They are to the ball. They don't stop. And listen, and every single time they blew the whistle, there were 3-4 Montana State jerseys around the football at all times, and they got after Eric Smith. They forced turnovers, and they were just flying around to the football, man. And they were on a mission, and I really do feel like they felt a little bit, like they were being overlooked, and they went into Sam Houston and made a huge statement on the road. When people see, I think Montana State put more pressure on Smig, got them out of their normal offensive scheme. Sam Houston's defense got worn down. I think that's a fair assessment, Colin. And on top of that, Sam Houston, and it just kind of goes back to what I was saying earlier. They really haven't been punched in the mouth, Colin, all season long. Stephen F. Austin defensively kind of hit him in the mouth, but Stephen F. Austin didn't have the offensive scheme to really complete that upset. And then Incarnate Word, they punched them in the mouth, and then Incarnate Word had to fight back. So this was the first time I think you could say Sam Houston was drowning early. I mean, they put it all on them quick, and it was all from explosive, quick plays. And like you said, I think it put a lot of pressure on the offense that's really not used to playing from a deficit. And on top of that, I just thought they looked shell-shocked. Y'all can comment if y'all say the same thing, and I'm not saying they gave up or anything like that, because of course they didn't, and I'm never going to accuse the team of giving up. But they just looked like they weren't comfortable in that position. They looked at the scoreboard and they were like, "Is it 28-0 in the first half? Like, we were the favorites. This is our home stadium. We're the defending national champions, and it's 28-0." I think it, like you said, it really got them out of their game, and it put a lot of pressure on everybody. Let's see. Montana State's defense is the truth. Lawrence, you are not kidding, man. I give a lot of credit to that defense. Even though the offense played lights out, put up a lot of points, the defense forcing the turnovers and, getting out to a big lead really helped. Lawrence, they play good ball up in Montana, North Dakota, South Dakota. Lawrence, man, I'm telling you, and I hear all the comments all the time, and they always say, man, all these schools up in Montana, North Dakota, South Dakota, like, are they really that good? Like, could they compete with the Southern? Because there's always like a little bit of a Southern bias with football due to regionally those states producing so much talent. I'm like, man, if you go watch, like if you turn on the TV and watch a Montana State, I'm even going to throw Montana in there, even though they lost this weekend, a North Dakota State, a South Dakota State. And let's even say this, South Dakota and North Dakota, just those schools alone who weren't really in the playoffs, they have their moments. But man, those schools up there have real talent. I think more people need to be excited. Like and I think Lawrence, you're the one who responded to it on my episode that I did about the I believe I forgot which hire it was. It was a coaching hire in the FBS. Someone commented that the FCS playoffs are boring this year, and I was like, you must not be watching, because anybody who's watched these games, there's no way it's boring, especially when you have North Dakota State, James Madison in the semis. You got Montana State, South Dakota State in the semis. There's zero way that you could say this was boring. And I believe, Lawrence, you were the one that responded to the comment to I believe it was Terry. Let's see, 2 Dakota teams going to Frisco. I was at the game. Montana State took the breath out of the stadium. I bet they did, man. I mean, even on TV, it looked like all the energy was sucked out of the place immediately, and that's what explosive plays will do. I mean, if you could write a textbook on how to win big on the road, the number one thing you have to do is a fast start. If you can get an explosive play right off the bat, jump up, and then get a quick defensive stop, that's the textbook way to take all the energy out of a stadium and get your footing on the road, especially in a big environment like this weekend was in. Let's see. Some of these teams look like FBS teams, but honestly, a lot of these playoffs teams didn't look like they're unbeatable by a good HBCU. Sonic Boom, I wouldn't say. So I would say a lot of these teams, aren't. I don't think anybody in the playoffs is unbeatable. And I mean, this is college football. Anybody's beatable. I think it's all about matchups, man. So I mean, you would have to. You would have to like say this certain team would match up with this one better, and vice versa. But yeah, I don't think anyone would say anybody in the playoffs right now is unbeatable. I think it's clear who the two favorites are right now, and they probably will play on Friday night. But I don't think anyone would say they were unbeatable, Sonic Boom, because I don't think anybody in college football is unbeatable at all. 2 Dakota teams heading to Frisco. Garth, that would be okay. And I talked about it on the mailbag. I believe it was like a week or two ago. I really do think that would be one of the coolest national championships that we've had, man. South Dakota State versus North Dakota State, a rematch in Frisco. That would be that would be crazy. And listen, I am probably going to be in Frisco for the national championship. So if y'all are going, let me know. I'll see y'all there. But I am going to try to be in Frisco, Texas for the national championship. But yeah, I would love to see 2 Dakota teams heading. Garth, I won't spoil my picks this week, so you got to tune in Thursday night. But I do think there's a good chance of that. Colin said, "I love my Bearcats, but this loss looks bad heading into Conference USA." Um, it I'm not gonna lie. I'm not gonna lie, Colin. It does look a little bad, but at the same time, let's see how they load up this offseason. I don't think I don't think they're as far off as you think. I just think everything that could have went wrong for Sam Houston this weekend, Colin, went wrong. I don't think they're a terrible team or anything like that, and I really don't think the CUSA is like all world either. There's some really good teams in there, but I do think Sam Houston right now will probably be in the lower middle half of that conference for right now. But every team that moves up is going to have struggles. To be honest with you, but I don't. This loss looks bad to a point, but I don't think they lost to a bad team or anything like that. I just think it was arguably their worst performance in probably 2 seasons, man. It was a really bad performance, but I think overall the team itself has a lot of talent to move along with it to the next level. So I would be still cautiously optimistic if I'm a Sam Houston fan moving into the CUSA. Lawrence says Sam Houston and Jacksonville State eligible for the playoffs next season. James Madison last FCS season. I'm assuming they're eligible, Lawrence. I don't think there's a rule against it. There might be, though. I mean, listen, if the FCS is spiteful and says, well, you're leaving us, so we don't want you in the playoffs, I mean, it could happen, but I do think they're still eligible for the playoffs next season, Lawrence, if I'm not mistaken. I will do my research, though, and double check that, but we'll just have to see. I see some of these teams didn't look as good as I thought they would. A couple just had good O-line play, D-line depth, and good execution and chemistry. Yeah, I mean, Sonic Boom, that's really and truly like what it comes down to, though, especially in the playoffs. This one, you got to execute on a high level to win any national championship. And O-line and D-line depth are a big thing. That's really the key to North Dakota State's success over these past however many years you want to go back to. They always have one of the best offensive lines in the FCS and always one of the best D lines. And they just win the line of scrimmage and they play disciplined, clean football, and everyone's where they need to be. It's North Dakota State is the ultimate just do your job type team. Really and truly, they don't have, they don't have, just insane athletes at every position. It's just do your job and go win the football game. And it works year in and year out. And it's worked. And you can't say it's the coaching either, because the coaches switch every few years. I mean, you can even go back to the Kleiman days, who's now at Kansas State. I mean, you can go back before that. I mean, they've went through multiple head coaches. So I really do think they've just built a culture of winning there, Sonic Boom. And when you come into North Dakota State, and I believe Spencer Wagey talked about it when we had on the show. You can go back and check that interview. He said it's just the expectation. When you're recruited to North Dakota State, you're just expected to come in and win a championship, and they understand that, and it's just do your job, next guy up type stuff. And I think the biggest difference, Sonic Boom, between some of these top teams and some of the teams like in the SWAC is the culture in the program of just winning and executing at such a high level, and the chemistry and things like that. I do think those are some of the biggest differences. And of course, O-line play for sure. Because I mean, there were like, I think there was one or two O-lines that you could say were solid in the SWAC this year. So I think that's another place that I would say needs to improve as the SWAC moves into the playoffs more often. FCS football is life, says not brought any HBCU will get blown out by any of these Final Four teams. HBCU is a few years away. CJ said ETSU's Randy Sanders. Yeah, he retired. He retired today. It was kind of unexpected, in my opinion. I didn't see it coming. I know a lot of other people didn't. ETSU set up to boom. I personally think it depends on who they hire, CJ. I think the number one thing, and since this just happened today, I haven't done any research or heard anything about the hire. So I'll look into that for you when we get to the mailbag on tomorrow night. I'll try to have some information on that coaching hire. But ETSU's got some talent. So if they can get a proper coach in there, I think ETSU will be just fine moving on. I mean, in the SoCon, I still think they're one of the best teams in the conference. So I think ETSU will be okay moving forward. They just have to make a good hire. Let's see. FCS football said, love your channel, by the way. Appreciate you covering FCS football. I played at the level and love being a fan now. Go Jackrabbits, man. I appreciate it, man. Thank you for the support, man. And being a former player, man, I know this. There's definitely not enough coverage, and I think you even know that going back to your playing days. There's definitely not enough channels covering the entire FCS. There's a lot of channels covering one team or like one conference, but there aren't enough national channels where you can get like a holistic view of the entire FCS. So, man, I appreciate your support. Serve Music, the level of play isn't even close. HBCUs just need to improve in the trenches and coaching. They're probably a year or two off. Collins said, I think Sam Houston had better talent all around, but Montana State had prepared better, in my opinion. Sam didn't finish the practice all week. 22 games and less than 9 punts put a lot of stress into them. And that's one thing I do want to say. And I think everyone needs to take a moment and think about this. And if you know an FCS athlete, man, you got to give them their props. The fact that these guys went through a season in the spring, and the teams that made a run like the Sam Houston State played pretty much a full season in the spring, turned around, jumped right into summer workouts, fall camp, and then played a full season and is making another playoff run, having damn near 30 games in one calendar year is unheard of. So I think you got to give these FCS athletes, coaches, and programs a lot of credit for pulling this off, because it was something a lot of people really didn't, one, want to happen for some people, and two, didn't think would be able to be pulled off. They did an excellent job of it. And so I want to give a round of applause to all the athletes being out there that long, because I think he gets overlooked a lot, Colin. I'm glad you brought that up. The wear and tear of a season is one thing, but to have like almost 2 full seasons in one calendar year it's so impressive, the fact that they did this, man. So I think they deserve a round of applause and a lot of respect from us as fans and analysts, and whatever you may be. I think they deserve a lot of respect for going through 2 full seasons in one calendar year. And I think next year, I think you're going to see a lot of teams rebound due to the rosters kind of balancing back out. due to a lot of rest, due to a lot of just getting back into the norm. I would say I think you're going to see FCS football and some of these programs kind of bounce back a little bit. Steve, it wasn't even close. Montana State straight bully Sam Houston, man. Steve, that okay. And I don't want to. I try not to be a prisoner of the moment. I try to, let myself, think about it, rewatch some of the games. I don't think it's a stretch to say I thought that was the most impressive performance of the playoffs thus far. I mean, it could be easily surpassed this weekend or the national championship, but I think right now you got to say Montana State probably has the um, most impressive win and performance of the FCS playoffs this year. To go into Sam Houston State and leave no doubt like that and beat them on special teams, on the D line, at the linebacker spot, in the secondary, in the turnover battle, to do it without your starting quarterback all season, to do it with the running game with the Fonzie. I think personally, man, Montana State had the best performance of the FCS playoffs. That you're right, they straight bullied Sam Houston State. I totally agree. Chris said, "Blue, I'm calling it now. It's Montana State's time to go to the championship, win it all, and party like it's 1984." Chris, man, that would be huge. And listen, I know that. Um, how do I say this? I know I don't have like the FCS hours that like some people do, especially in these groups. And I know a lot of people tuned in are from those FCS groups. So I post a lot of content in there, and I appreciate y'all rocking with me. But the Montana State, Montana, and those type of teams, the fan bases are so passionate. I mean, Montana State, I believe, if I remember right, I think Jackson State posted an attendance thing. Montana State was an easy second, and Montana was up there. So I mean, I love it. And if Montana State gets there, man, it's going to be crazy. And I know all the Facebook groups are going to go, wow, there's a lot of Montana State fans in there. I would love to see it, Chris. And I like you calling it, man. Let's see, they don't make enough adjustments. Coach Prime exposed that this season. I'm not saying all of them, but too many didn't. I agree. There's nothing wrong with coaching. At FAMU, we put 60, 70, 80 points when I played. Like and share, man. Appreciate it. Sonic Boom. James Madison is getting revenge over North Dakota State. Oh, man, listen, we could talk about this real quick, and y'all can drop your comments in. These semifinal matchups, especially James Madison, North Dakota State, are going to be must-watch games. And they're both on ESPN2. James Madison, North Dakota State on Friday night, and Montana State, South Dakota State at 1 p.m. Central Time after the Celebration Bowl kicks off at 1 o'clock. I absolutely cannot wait for these games. And I think that North Dakota State James Madison game can do numbers on ESPN2 on Friday night with hardly any competition. They should only have some I think they should only have some NBA games on Friday night to really compete with. I think they'll be the only football on. I think North Dakota State James Madison could be like one of those game of the year type games. And I think it's going to be a dog fight in the Fargo Dome. And if I didn't live so far away, I would be in Fargo this weekend, even though it's super cold. But man, I cannot wait to see that game. See, not to mention Sam Houston had never lost a playoff game at home. Man, that's to lose it like that, Colin, to lose it like that, that's brutal for your first ever home loss in a playoff game to come like that. I actually didn't know they were undefeated at home, but that's a brutal way to lose, man. Leon said, all coaches have a vision. You're limited adjustments when you don't have the talent. Why do you think HBC football, they try to go for it on fourth down so much with no kicker? When you have the talent, you're able to make these adjustments because you have the personnel. Lawrence said 2 bowls playing on Friday. Listen, turn that game on multiple screens, man. We got to drop. Listen, the higher the views are for FCS, that means SWAC, Big Sky, playoffs, SoCon, OVC, Southland. It doesn't matter. Run the views up on these FCS games because that is by far the best way to get more TV coverage because there should be way more FCS coverage on TV. So definitely turn those games on this weekend. This weekend, you got the FCS semifinals, the Celebration Bowl, FBS bowl games. Safe to say, I'm definitely going to pass out at the sports bar this weekend. Man, Chris, I am so pumped for football to kind of we had Army Navy this weekend. We had the playoffs, but I'm ready for just like the binge session that I can do on football. I kind of, it was kind of weird this weekend. I'm still in my regular season mode because I was previewing so many games, watching film all night, things like that. And this past weekend, I was kind of like, man, like there's only like 5 games to watch this weekend. So I'm really ready, and I'm also ready for bowl season to pick up and get into some of those more important bowl games. So we will be having our Celebration Bowl preview this week. We're going to be previewing some of the FBS bowl games. Listen, I'm going to be honest with y'all. I'm not previewing all the bowl games. I don't think anybody in this chat, anybody subscribes to the channel wants me to cover every single of like the 60 bowl games because I don't think a lot of people are really pumped for some of these first bowl games. So I'm just going to cover like the majorly important ones and some of the good matchups we have. So hopefully that's good with y'all, man. I'm definitely going to be have the semifinal the semifinal preview on Thursday night. It'll be 6 or 6:30 p.m. Central Time. Just turn on your post notifications for that. But we'll come on and preview all the semifinal games this Thursday. But let's see. Lawrence says salute to Navy for beating that other branch. He said the branch that shall not be named. He said we're just gonna call it that other branch. Steve said Sam Houston State coach Casey Keeler or Jackson State coach prime for the Eddie Robinson Coach of the Year award. Coach of the Year. Both coaches didn't lose the FCS game. Um, Steve, I don't think have they named that award. I think they're going to release that award this week sometime, if I'm not mistaken. I have to look it up. But last time I know the coach from UT Martin was up there too, because he's really turned around UT Martin. I think the coach from Incarnate Word is going to be up there. Because Incarnate Word had their highest FCS ranking of all time, I believe. And I believe it was one of their first playoff. I mean, Incarnate Word had an outstanding season, winning the Southland too. So I think the Incarnate Word coach is going to be up there as well in there. But I do think that Sam Houston and Jackson and Coach Prime are probably going to be both up there. Let's see. Colin said lots of good football this weekend. Plus, here in Texas, we got the high school state championships as well. A lot of talent in those games. The big one is Duncanville versus North Shore. Listen, Colin, that was going to be. I know about North Shore, and Colin, I think you'll know this. Demetrius Davis committed to Auburn out of North Shore last year. Man, that kid is so good. I don't know why Auburn hasn't started him yet. He should start next year, now that Nix is out. But we'll see. But man, North Shore versus Duncanville is going to be one hell of a game. They should tell. I wish they had that one televised, Colin. And if they do, let me know because I want to watch that game because there's always good talent at both of those schools. Chris says news reports say that the Celebration Bowl is sold out, and we all know how big the Mercedes-Benz Stadium is. Yeah, Chris, I believe they said they're releasing. They sold out, and they're releasing 1,000, maybe 2 standing room only tickets. I believe it's tomorrow, and they said after those tickets are sold out, that they're not releasing anymore. So it looks like the Mercedes-Benz Stadium will be sold out, and I thought it would be. Listen, with Coach Prime being in it, I figured that place was selling. Listen, Jackson State fans travel, especially to Atlanta, so I'm not surprised at all that they sold the stadium out. The first 2 levels are sold out. They're not opening the 300 level tickets, so the numbers don't beat there. But Sonic Boom, they're not. That's okay. So I don't know. Okay, so breaking news also, in case you guys are wondering, Spencer Rattler just committed to South Carolina. So Spencer Rattler will be going to the South Carolina Gamecocks next season. So transferring into the SEC for South Carolina. But back on topic, I don't know why they're not opening the 300 level. That's just more money for them. That's more exposure. That's more merchandise sale. That's more food and drink sale. I don't know why they won't open the 300 level. That's ridiculous. Steve said the Florida State Championship, a lot of Miami Hurricane commits. And Steve, probably more, because I think Mario Cristobal is just going to go on a rampage recruiting the state of Florida. And now that he's down in Miami, I really do think Miami is going to absolutely just explode on the recruiting trail. They've already talked about a lot of those kids committed elsewhere or being uncommitted. I think they're all going to Miami, man. Mario Cristobal is about to do work down there in South Florida. Serve. Yeah, that is top tier high school ball there. Man, the fact that high school Texas football can sell out Jerry World just about, blows my mind. I mean, that's how passionate Texas high school football fans are. They will sell out a whole NFL stadium for a high school game. I mean, the level of passion and commitment to high school football in the state of Texas is completely different, Serve. It's completely different. Should He says shouldn't have went to the SEC. Let's see. Blue, I thought you were going to say South Carolina State with Spencer Rattler. You had me in the first half. Nah, man. Just South Carolina, not South Carolina State, man. Oh man, you got Chris. That one was funny. He said my heart. He said my heart dropped. Oh man, Colin, they have it televised, but only here in Texas, not nationally televised. Zach Evans is from North Shore as well. He's in the transfer portal right now, and Alabama has two linemen for North Shore. North Shore is built is just Colin. There's probably some like D3, D2 schools that North Shore can compete with. That school produces so much talent, man, and they always just have great athletes. And yeah, Zach Evans is in the portal. And there's a report that they brought LaDainian Tomlinson in to talk to him to try to convince him not to go to the portal. So I don't know what's going to come of that. But yeah, man, North Shore always has great talent. And yeah, the one kid from North Shore was committed to Auburn. And then when they fired Gus Malzahn, he committed to Alabama. It broke my heart. We really needed him, to be honest with you. Let's see. Steve said he played at FAMU from 03 to 05. USC Keaton Slovis is in the portal. Yeah, man, the portal this year is, oh my gosh, man, the portal this year is crazy. And I think a lot of these FCS schools are going to look to them. You got Keaton Slovis, you got Bo Nix now, Spencer Rattler, Dylan Gabriel from UCF. You got Cameron Ward from Incarnate Word. And if you haven't seen my episode on Cameron Ward, go check it out after the live stream, man. I break down why I personally think that he is the best quarterback in the portal. You also got Taquan Robertson from Penn State that entered today, who I think is going to be, that's going to be the quarterback FAMU needs to go for. And then I still think there's even more that I'm missing. Caleb Williams still hasn't officially said, even though it looks like he's going to stay at Oklahoma. And who knows, man, more. Oh, Max Johnson from LSU is in the portal as well. I mean, there's so many good players out there right now for these FCS schools to go and potentially pick up. Westlake and Duncanville are vicious. Yeah, man. I mean, different type of football, man. Different type of football. Let's see. What do you think about the former Miami quarterback Jared Williams coming to Alabama A&M? Man, their quarterback room is just their quarterback room is just built different, man. I mean, really and truly. But I do think Jaron Williams has a lot of things to work on. When you look at his time in Miami, didn't have a great offensive line. He was not great under pressure in the pocket, and I think when he transferred to I believe it was junior college, he was solid. But I do think him and Quincy Casey, that's going to be a battle. But right now, I do think Quincy Casey is a better thrower of the football and is a better fit for the offense Connell Mater wants to run. The only advantage that Williams has over Casey is that he's bigger and he just has more muscle mass. And so maybe they want someone who's a bit more stout in the pocket. But I personally think right now I would have a hard time seeing him start next year at Alabama A&M. But I do think it's a good pickup for depth. And I do think it's always great to bring in competition. And, I had a Jackson State parent that I talked to on the phone last week, and he said that's the next step for a lot of these SWAC teams is to not recruit needs, but recruit depth. And that's going to be the next big step. And that's what separates the SWAC sometimes from the North Dakota States, the James Madisons, et cetera, is the fact that you got to recruit depth at every position. Even though you have a guy in Quincy Casey who can come in and start, you have to recruit depth to keep pushing that talent forward. So I think that's more about what the commitment was. Lawrence said Bo Nix is in the portal. Where will he go? Lawrence, I have a hard time, especially with Dylan Gabriel leaving. I have a hard time seeing Bo Nix not going to UCF. I mean, him and Gus Malzahn have such a good relationship. Bo Nix's family loves what Malzahn is doing. They love the offense that he runs. And so I would be hard pressed to see him not go to UCF after they just lost Gabriel to the transfer portal. I know Joey Gatewood went down there, but I think if Malzahn can get his hands on Bo Nix again, I would not be surprised. Also, on top of that, Kenny Dillingham. He's looking to go to Oregon potentially. I know there were rumors about him to Oklahoma, but he's the offensive coordinator at Florida State. Him and Nix, he was Nix's first offensive coordinator. I can see Nix reuniting with Dillingham if he stays at Florida State, but Nix is going to stay in the South. And on top of that, he also has a great relationship with the Troy coach. So Troy could be another option if he wants to take a step down and go to the lower group of 5 level and stay closer to home in the state of Alabama. But those are probably the 3 choices right now. I would say is that it's UCF, Florida State, or like a Troy or something like that. I think that those are probably the top places for Nix to go as of right now. He just entered like last night, so I haven't heard anything on that front. And I'm an Auburn insider, man. I can give you all the Auburn stuff, but I haven't heard any schools interested just yet. Steve said Cameron Ward visited Ole Miss. Yeah, man, he visited Ole Miss this weekend. Said he gave the visit a 10 out of 10. Man, if he can go to Ole Miss, man, all props to him, and he deserves it. That kid is a baller. And I talk about his visit and things like that on the episode, Steve, as well, about Cameron Ward, about what his dad said and some of the other schools that reached out to him. But Cameron Ward to Ole Miss would be a problem. How much money does the NCAA take from the home team? I'm not sure about a specific number, Sonic Boom, but I believe it's somewhere around 30%ish, I believe, is what is what I heard, but I'll have to double check that number for you, Sonic Boom. I'll double check that before my next live stream. Caleb Williams to USC. Did you see Ewers signed with Texas? Yeah, man, I'm not surprised at all there. And I just want to say, if Ewers lives up to the hype and they can keep Bijan Robinson, man, you're talking about a backfield that is going to be terrifying to Big 12 defenses for one more year. Bijan Robinson, arguably the best running back in college football, along with Ewers, who has all the potential in the world. I think Ewers and Robinson are going to make Texas's offense a problem if they can click together. Jaron Williams, man. Let's see. Alabama A&M needs defense. They did. I don't know if you saw this, Lawrence. They did land 2 4-star defensive commits. I know one was from like Illinois. I'll have to look it up, but they did get 2 4-star defensive commits today. I did see that. I believe Scotty mentioned it as well. But yeah, they got 2 commits on defense today, both 4 stars. I think they have it on their recruiting Twitter. I don't remember the @ name, but if you look up Alabama A&M football, they did get 2 4-stars today, I believe, on defense. I know at least one. The other one might be maybe a 3-star. But they got 2 4-stars today on the defensive side of the ball. Cameron Ward, that wide receiver group, and Lane Kiffin would be a problem. Man, I agree. Silence. If Cameron Ward can get into a Lane Kiffin offense, the sky is the limit for that kid, especially with Drummond and some of the wide receivers they have there. Man, you're going to be talking about he's going to be hard to stop, man. I think Cameron Ward's ceiling is almost limitless, man. I think immediately if he joins the SEC, and especially in the SEC West, you can put him, among one of the best quarterbacks in that division. He's not better than Bryce Young right now. I'm not going to ever say that, but with Corral leaving, who's next? Nix is leaving. I mean, you might have Will Rogers and the A&M quarterback transferred today. So I think right now he's at least the second or third best quarterback in the SEC West right now if he joins, depending on what Auburn, Texas A&M, LSU doesn't have a quarterback as of right now. Mississippi State has Rogers. Ole Miss is looking for a quarterback. I think right now him and KJ Jefferson maybe, but I think Cameron Ward going to Ole Miss would be huge. And I mentioned that on the episode too. I think that would be the perfect fit for him. Now I played to Valdosta and then transferred to FAMU. So I left with a master's degree. Man, Leon, you should. Man, you can't pass up FAMU, man. Yeah, listen, their colors too. Their uniforms are so clean. I'm not gonna lie. FAMU has one of my favorite uniforms. I know some people don't like the colors, but I love the green and orange together. I do think it looks clean. I think Sam Houston will have a lot of talent in years to come, especially now that they can hand out more scholarships. A lot of talent right here in the Texas high school football. Yeah, man. I think the biggest thing for Sam Houston is, one, the revenue is probably going to be increased, especially if you can get to bowl games in the CUSA. God forbid, get to the conference championship. And like you said, that huge scholarship increase is big too. I think think Sam Houston, the number one thing, Colin, they have to do is hit on the underrated or overlooked Texas talent. If you can tap into that 3 to lower 4-star potential where you're not having to fight the big schools for all those recruits, I think that's where they can make their money. Fight a Texas Tech or a TCU and just kind of get some of those overlooked kids that you can develop into superstars. And I think that's where Sam Houston is going to be able to or is going to have to make their money. What about Jalen Jones to BCU? I think it's a huge upgrade over what they had at quarterback. I want to see how he developed as a passer, Chris. The number one thing is he's got to improve his accuracy. He has to improve his footwork in the pocket and his release. Those three things, if they've improved just slightly, huge win for Bethune-Cookman. Now, how is he going to handle being back in the SWAC, facing that? Because when he left, I think the SWAC is much better now than when he left. Is he going to be able to live up to all that hype and live up to that level of competition? That's what I want to see, and I want to see how he's developed over the year he hasn't been in the SWAC. That's what I want to see mostly with Jalen Jones. Davis is going to be a stud at Auburn when he gets his chance. Hopefully, it's this year, Colin. I've been screaming for Davis to get his chance. We'll see. I've been screaming for Davis to get his chance. That's a whole nother soapbox that I can go on for hours. I hope Quincy doesn't transfer again. Jaron Williams isn't special. Has more miles than Jared Lewis, Miami, Kansas, JUCO, UCF, and now Alabama A&M. Yeah, man. Just in that's what I told. I talked to Scotty about it, and I was like, I don't see him being a starting quarterback. I really do think they brought him in for depth because they lost so many quarterbacks. Akil graduated. I believe they lost 2 transfers off that team to the QB portal. So I think they really brought him in for depth and to have an experienced an experienced option just in case Quincy Casey goes down. That would be my guess. QC should have left the SWAC. His brother said today on Off Script that he tried to convince him to go to Rice. I don't know if that would have been any better, but he had the opportunity to leave the SWAC. He wanted to stay, so I do give him a little bit of credit. Let's see. Do you think UH will compete in the Big 12? I do. Okay, so Colin and I've been vocal about this, and the Big 12 to me, I think is going to be fine. You look at Houston, you look at Cincinnati, you look at UCF, and you look at BYU. All those teams have been solid teams at the Group of 5 level, and you're removing Texas, who I don't think Texas is all world at all. Like the zero. I don't think Texas is that much better than Houston right now. I'm going to be honest with you. And right now, I think the top 2 teams in that conference right now, after Texas and Oklahoma leave, are going to be Oklahoma State with Gundy, and I think Baylor as long as Aranda stays. And then maybe I don't know. It's so tough. Maybe Klieman in Kansas State if they can replace Skylar Thompson. But right now, Baylor and Oklahoma State are going to be the top 2 teams in that conference. I do think Houston and Cincinnati are going to be the best paired to compete immediately, Colin. So I think Houston right now, if you added them into the Big 12, I think they could be a top 5 team in the Big 12 right now. And I think right now, Clayton Tune, that receiving core, the number one thing I want to see Houston develop, Colin, is a defensive line. They're going to have to get better on the defensive line, get some real true pass rushers that can withstand the grind of the Power 5. That's going to be the key for Houston to competing. But I absolutely think that they could be one of the top half in the top half of that conference when they join, because I personally believe they can recruit the state of Texas. And on top of that, right now, outside of Oklahoma State and Baylor, there's a lot of teams with a lot of holes surrounding that program right now. So or surrounding that conference. So I do think they can compete. That's my long-winded answer of why I think they can compete. See, do you think UMHB will replace teams like Sam Houston in the FCS? I know I I think I really don't know, Colin. Because you'll still have North Dakota State at the top, South Dakota State. You'll have those MVFC teams. You'll have those Big Sky teams. You'll have in the CAA. I think Villanova is going to take a huge step forward. For me, I pers it's going to be so tough. I mean, maybe I do like the Texas A&M Commerce addition to the Southland, and I think the team that I thought was going to take over for Sam Houston Colin could have been Incarnate Word, but now that they lost their coach in Cameron Ward, I just don't see them taking that next step. But I do think there is some potential for some of those. We're going to need OVC and we're going to need the Southland to have a team step up. I think somebody in that conference has to those two conferences has to step up. Whether it's Austin P, whether it's Tennessee State, whether it's Southeastern, whether it's Incarnate Word, whoever they decide to hire, I think those two conferences are going to have to be the ones that produce somebody to replace Sam Houston State. But I mean, UMHB has potential. I just think when you move from one level to the next, it takes minimum of 2 to 3 years to replace a team. I've really or catch up to where those teams are. Like when you move, so with Sam Houston moving up a level, I think it's going to take 2 to 3 years for them to compete at that level and catch up financially, catch up resource wise, and catch up experience wise. So if for like UMHB for Texas A&M Commerce, it's going to take 2 to 3 years for them to replace somebody like a Sam Houston, and really maybe even longer because of how good Sam Houston was as it stepped up. I think the better option to replace the Sam Houston would be for one of those teams in the OVC, in the SoCon, in the Southland to step up and become that next Sam Houston until some of these newer teams are ready. I mentioned West Florida, Valdosta State. One of those teams I think would be a great addition to like the Southland or the OVC or the SoCon to move up. And then I think of Valdosta State. I know a lot of people in here are big on Valdosta State potentially moving up. If Valdosta State can move up, I think that would be a team that would be more likely to replace a team like Sam Houston just because of the winning tradition that they bring. And on top of that, they have the talent already. I mean, they're running through the D2 playoffs right now. So I think that would be a team that I would say had the better chance if they can ultimately move them up, or maybe even like a West Florida potentially. That would be a team I would look to as well. Sonic Boom said, "Wow, Rice." He didn't really explain Sonic Boom of why Rice. I just know Rice was one of the teams that offered him, and his brother said that he would fit the offensive scheme. It Texas football, but yeah, he didn't really explain why Rice. Chris Lucas, do you think Prairie View will get the official deal to hire Kevin Sumlin? Maybe. I think that's their best hire though, Chris. Uh, I've heard. I believe it's KJ Black is the other name that's being associated with it. But I think if you can get Kevin Sumlin, and then in the SWAC you would have Kevin Sumlin, you would have Hugh, and you would have Coach Prom, and on top of that, Willie Simmons being the type of coach he is, along with Fred McNair. I think that would be huge for the SWAC in terms of the high level of coaches in there. So I do think Prairie View needs to get that deal with someone done. I know a lot of people question it right now, Chris. A lot of people question whether he would actually come to Prairie View, but I think we're going to have to see, man. We're going to have to see. Let's see how long in that damn air raid offense. Um, it's Oklahoma State or Baylor. Blue, what's up, Ralph? Man, appreciate you tuning in, my guy. Texas has way too much money to be sorry. I do feel like they should have kept Herm a little longer. Yeah, EA, listen, it is it's been a theme around college football where the shelf life of coaches is so low that they don't give anybody a chance to develop. You look at Auburn with Gus Malzahn, you look at Herman at Texas. What about Dan Mullen at Florida? He went to 3 straight New Year's Six bowls, came off a SEC championship appearance, had one bad season, and they told him to get out of town. The college football has become completely impatient, man, and so I think that's the main thing, man. With that one, let's see. Are you going to watch Auburn play in the bowl game with Beeham later this month? Serve, I won't be there. I'll definitely be watching. Don't worry. I'll be watching the Auburn game, but I won't be there. I'm moving. Honestly, I'm moving on like the 28th or so. So I'm going to be in the middle of packing and trying to get myself back down south to Alabama. So really for that whole week of like right after Christmas, I'm going to be moving. So I probably won't get to any games till after the 30th. So I'm looking to go to the playoff game in Dallas between Cincinnati and Alabama. I'm looking to go to the Frisco to check out the national championship and things like that. And then I also have applied. We'll see if I get approved for media passes for the Natty in Indianapolis, and those are probably the postseason games I'm going to. But next year I'll be back at Auburn, and I got a bunch of games on my list. I'm going to be traveling like every weekend, going to games everywhere, man. So I'll let you know what games I'll be at next season. But I won't be able to go to Beeham this year. I'm kind of upset. I wish I could, but I'll definitely be watching. Henry said, "Punt that Bo Nix jersey out the window." Listen, Henry. So funny story. That's actually not a Bo Nix jersey. I actually got that jersey. It's a game issue jersey from the 2010 season, and it's autographed by Gene Chizik, and it says National Champs 2010. Got the number 10 jersey because of the year. So it's a game issued 2010 jersey. It's not Bo Nix. Don't worry. I would have punted it out the window for you, man, if it was. Texas has traditionally underachieved. Houston is really just going to have to develop linemen with a good weight program. I agree. That's the number one thing. Let's see. The Southland has to revamp. The OVC is not in as bad of a shape. Believe it or not, the playbook is small, and they run a lot of the same plays and direct formations. Let's see. Jacksonville State, JMU, Sam Houston should move up. They're going to struggle. Listen, man, I mean, you got to. I mean, okay, they're going to struggle, T, but I do think the money makes sense to move up. You get the revenue sharing. There's no better time to move up. I think ultimately it's still going to be a good move in the long run, T. I think they could all use the Appalachian State, Coastal Carolina model, but they're going to have to go through some growing pains just like everybody. Nobody's going to move up a level and just be successful immediately. So I think Jacksonville State fans, James Madison fans, and Sam Houston fans should just be patient for the next 2 to 3 years until they catch their breath at the next level. Let's see. JMU competed with 4 FCS schools now. They have to compete with 4 other FBS teams in the state. Yeah, recruiting is going to be tough. And Jacksonville State, you still have to compete with Alabama, Auburn, South Alabama. I mean, there's a lot of teams that recruit the state of Alabama and still have to compete with Sanford, Alabama A&M, Alabama State. It's going to be tough for all these teams to recruit, in my opinion. Let's see. Can Sam Houston upset Texas A&M in the opener? Oh man. Colin, I'm not gonna lie to you. That's gonna be a tough task because it's been a while since I can't remember the last time ETSU beat Vandy. Okay, outside of Vandy, Colin, I can't remember the last time an FCS team came in and beat a SEC team like that. It's gonna be tough, but listen, if Sam Houston can get that win, that's a program changing win, especially as you're about to move up a level. It would do wonders for Sam Houston, but I do think that's a tough ask early in the season for Sam Houston. Let's see. Valdosta State's been masquerading as a D2 school for too long. I agree. If they can move up to the Southland, that would be huge. Sam Houston's not upsetting Texas A&M. Hiring Sark was a red flag for Texas. Sam Houston will make a killing in the portal. That's where that's what they have to do pretty much, man. You gotta win the transfer portal, especially as you're moving up, and that's what you see a lot of these group of 5 teams do. When I was there, we had a running back from FSU. The O-line average weight was 330. Jesus Christ, man. Yeah, y'all need to move up, Leon. Call your Valdosta State people. Tell them to come to the FCS and replace Sam Houston State, man. We need you guys at this level. Blue, come to South Beach for the Orange Bowl, man. Steve, I will see what I can do, man. I'll definitely try to come down there for the Orange Bowl. That's one of the games I definitely want to try to go to eventually. All the big dog football this weekend in the FCS. Did you get a chance to see St. Thomas make their debut on the D1 level? Coming from D3, they did an amazing for their first year, going 7-3. Makes you wonder what Mount Union and UMHB could do. Yeah, listen, to come from the D3 level and go 7-3 your first year, that's stout, Chris. Listen, that is impressive to say the least, and that's why I always say Valdosta State would be my pick if I had to pick a D2 school to move up. I think Valdosta State can come right now, and they would have a chance to win the Southland next year. And no offense to any of the Southland teams right now, I just think that's how good Valdosta State is. I mean, I don't comment now. Would y'all be surprised at all if Valdosta State won the Southland next year if they moved up? Because I personally wouldn't, if especially with the way they recruit transfers and things like that. And I did my research, like y'all told me on the last live stream. That's why I'm saying this. I think right now, if Valdosta State moved up, I would not be surprised if they could win the Southland next year, man. Struggle Dollars looking good. All of the teams in the semifinals have a good running game and tough defense, man. It's the same formula. We talked about it last live stream. I mean, you have to run the football and you have to play good defense and not turn the football over. Those are the keys at this level of the FCS playoffs, and that's been the key all playoffs long, man. Yeah, Georgia Southern beat Florida. I do remember that. Yep, you are right there, Steve. I forgot. Man, Florida has the worst luck, and then Stanford put up half 100 on them this year. Florida is really struggling with some of these schools. Liberty moved up to FBS and was in a bowl game. That's true. Yeah, but they also didn't join a conference, Lawrence. I think joining a conference makes it a little bit tougher, but it's possible. Listen, I think James Madison has the best chance to succeed as they're moving up, in my opinion. I do think that James Madison, out of everybody moving up, has the best opportunity to succeed at the next level. Valdosta State to the SoCon for better travel. I'm fine with them going to the SoCon. I just want to see them in FCS. I think losing James Madison, Jacksonville State, some of these teams, I would like to see Valdosta State move up and become another FCS power. You're gonna watch the details. Oh yeah, for sure, man. Listen, I'm invested. You know, I think I gotta credit Leon here. Shout out to Leon in the chat, man. Y'all see him in here. He told me to check out Valdosta State. I'm going to reach out to some of the players after the season to try to get them on the show for you guys. But I'm a Valdosta State fan right now at the D2 level. I'm just going to say this. I am a Valdosta State fan, and I'm going to be rooting for them against Ferris State. I was surprised, man. He told me there was some real talent on that team, and just looking on where they got those players and how they're playing, I'm impressed. So shout out to Leon in the chat for turning me on to Valdosta State. Nah, McNeese and UIW probably a little too much for them in the first year. That's fair, sir. That's fair. But my main point is they would compete, I think. I don't think they would get blown out in the Southland or the SoCon, really and truly, if they joined. Steve said Valdosta State, easy Southland champion. Colin, I still don't understand why Sam Houston joined the WAC. No idea, man. I mean, it would have made more, and the WAC has some solid teams, man. I'll give you that, but I still would have liked them to see them join the ASUN even over the WAC. I know they have the scheduling alliance this year. It didn't seem to be a move that made much sense. So I do agree with you there. Sunbelt is going to be tough. Oh, it is. Sunbelt's no joke. Listen, App State, Coastal, Louisiana Lafayette, those teams are no joke in the Sunbelt. And so James Madison will have a tough road, but I do think their team is built to have success at the next level. And Southeastern Louisiana. Chris, do you think James Madison could surpass Appalachian State? They're going to have a lot of work to do, Chris. They're going to have a lot of work to do. Appalachian State has done an excellent job, and they're one of the best examples of a team having success as they've moved up. That Michigan loss exploded the popularity of that program. And I mean, this year they were selling out crowds. They've been recruiting crazy in the Sun Belt over there. So I mean, App State's been competing for Sun Belt championships, man. So I do think James Madison is going to take a few years, but I think if everything goes right, the number one thing they have to do is, one, if they change coaches, the first coaching hire at the next level is going to be so important for that program. And then on top of that, making sure that you use all the money and I guess, attention and stuff you get from moving up, you have to put it in the right places. You have to make the right financial decisions, right developmental decisions, things like that. So James Madison to pass App State is going to have a lot go right, man. That's a tough ask because Appalachian State has been doing a great job at the FBS level. Louisiana beat App State. Yeah, they did, man. Listen, Louisiana Lafayette under I'm Blake, Billy Napier, a problem, Steve. That team was so good, and Billy Napier deserves so much credit for what he did it for that program. JMU is a juggernaut. They definitely have the best chance. App State has been a problem for a few years now, man. Shout out to that coaching staff. They lost Drinkowitz to Missouri. They've had a lot of coach turnover, and they just still, like I said, they've built that culture of sustained success. And I give App State a lot of props for how they've handled the Sun Belt and how they've handled their transition. App State used to be the North Dakota State of FCS. They also beat they beat UM. They ain't going undefeated. Yeah, they didn't go undefeated that year. You're right. And I mean, App State had a large amount of success at the FCS level. I just give them a lot of props for turning that into some success at the next level. Let's see, are you kidding? 11-0 after winning a national championship. Couldn't have asked for a better season, just lost to a good Montana State team. James Madison has to beat North Dakota State Friday. Can't move to the FBS with a loss. Yeah, I mean, just for the momentum of the program, you got to get a win. And if James Madison can go out with a national title, the hype of that program moving into that next conference is going to be at an all-time high, man. So I agree with you here. Beating North Dakota State is going to be of the utmost importance because, and the number one thing you can't have happen, Lawrence, is if North Dakota State blows them out, man, what a bad look for James Madison. You cannot get blown out by 14 or more points. If they beat you like Montana State beat Sam Houston, that's going to be a bad look. It really is. I want these FCS teams to have that momentum going into the next level. So I do think that a win over North Dakota State will be huge for just the brand and the momentum going into FBS. Ask Sam Houston, they're doing it. They were out the last 3 games. FBS is going to be every week. I like Sam Houston. Man, listen, and I'm going to be completely honest with you. I am so pumped for these semifinals, man. I am ecstatic to see what that James Madison North Dakota State game. I can't wait to preview them, guys. Remember, our semifinals preview will be on Thursday. I'm gonna say 6:30 p.m. Central Time. We're gonna preview both games, take y'all's questions live, break down everything, and I'm going to come with like the normal in-depth previews I usually do for the games. So it'll be a little bit on the longer side previewing those 2 games because we have a lot to break down in terms of matchups to watch, players to watch, things like that. I'm so pumped to see what's happening there. Let's see. Steve said Billy Napier used to be the QB at Furman, so he knew about App State from their SoCon days. Yeah, I mean, listen, Billy Napier. And I kind of previewed this on the episode I did where he went to Florida. His experience, like you said, he knew about App State in the SoCon days. His assistant time at Alabama, his time under Nick Saban. I mean, it really molded him into a real program builder. And I don't think anybody could have done what he did at Louisiana Lafayette as quick as he did. I mean, he turned that program around in a snap and has that program competing on a huge level, beating Iowa State last year, who went to the Big 12 championship, and they beat them like 31-14. It wasn't even close. So I give Billy Napier a lot of props. Sir said beating North Dakota State should be extremely important. They have to give off the appearance that they are not running from FCS and upgrading instead. Yeah, that's the number one. If you can go with a national championship, you can promote it as like, listen, man, we are the national champs at the FCS level. We want to go and compete with at the FBS level. We want to go show that we can compete at the next level and really, like you said, expand and grow the program, upgrade the program rather than just moving up for no reason. Billy, yeah, he was on the Clemson staff when Dabo Swinney first took over too. He saw 2 great head coaches up close and personal, man. And I think that's what makes him such a unique prospect in terms of coaching. But guys, man, I appreciate y'all tuning in, man. Listen, Thursday night, 6:30 p.m. Central Time. We're going to preview the semifinals. So make sure turn on your post notifications, subscribe if you're new, and hit that like button tonight as you leave the stream. Man, I definitely appreciate y'all's support. Man, I'm glad that I could be y'all's FCS source for content and things like that, man. I really, really do appreciate y'all. Listen, we had our interview with PJ Wells drop today, wide receiver, first team ASUN selection at wide receiver PJ Wells on the show today. Go check out that interview, smash the like button, run the likes up for him, man. That's such a great kid, and he deserves it. Going to be a staple at Jacksonville State moving forward. And then on Wednesday morning, we're going to have PJ Burkhalter, offensive lineman, Nicholls State. And he has been a 3-time Southland offensive lineman of the year award winner. So he deserves all the hype, man. That kid was so much fun to have on the show. And then, of course, we have a bunch of guests lined up. If you're a member, I'm going to post the list so y'all can post questions for people. I appreciate y'all giving me suggestions, all the members out there, on who y'all want to see on the show. I've DM'd everybody. So I'm trying to reach out to as many people as possible. I told them that they were highly requested, so we'll see what we can do there, man. But listen, you guys have a great Monday night. I'll see y'all tomorrow night, 6:30 p.m. Central Time for our live mailbag. I've already got a bunch of questions submitted. Y'all just show up, ask more questions, and we'll run as long as we need to, man. Got nothing going on tomorrow night, so we'll do another live stream tomorrow night as well. But guys, for myself and the Blue Bloods, we are out.